Hello and a very warm welcome to ET Studios CFO Blueprint in association with ET CFO. I'm your host Divina Lasson. Now in this series, we are thrilled to bring you conversations with India's leading CFOs to help us get unique insights about the journey of the modern CFO. Today we're here to talk about the evolving role of CFOs in the times of change. Now the role of CFOs have evolved significantly over the years with an increasing emphasis on strategic leadership, innovation and adaptability. In times of change, whether driven by technological advancements, economic shifts, or global crisis, CFOs have emerged as key drivers of organizational success and resilience. With their exceptional leadership skills, they have positioned themselves as strategic partners to CEOs today. So on this episode, we will deep dive into the essential traits of an effective CFO and their challenges, opportunities, and strategies to navigate uncertainty. Joining us, we have the renowned leader Amit Agarwal, Executive Director and Group CFO DCM Shriram Ltd, a 12,000 crore conglomerate. Amit, welcome to the show. It's really a pleasure to have you here today.
Thanks, Divina.
Thank you for being here. So, Amit, let's kickstart this conversation with really sort of setting the premise and helping our viewers to understand how the role of a CFO has evolved over the years, keeping in mind all the economic crisis, instability, volatility, the VUCA world we're living in, technological advancements. With all these factors coming together, how have you seen in your journey the role evolving?
See, Divina, the way I look at the role of the CFO, and I've seen that evolving in last 20 years, is today I would look at the role of a CFO divided into 4 segments, right? The first segment, and which is very essential, is the custodian segment, which we've always seen CFO as a controller, someone who's actually ensuring that all the compliances are in place. That's very important, but that's one segment, right? The second segment is business enabler, where you help businesses take decisions, right? That's very important again. The third and the fourth segment I'm talking about is what is evolving as a change, right? Now, the third one is where we as CFOs have to set principles of financial prudence, right? What are the boundaries within which the company has to operate, whether it is growth, whether it is new businesses and things like that. And the fourth is the strategy, right? Now, our role is so important, as you also mentioned in the beginning, that we have to work along with the CEO of the organization, right? And therefore, we are as much a part of the strategy, the growth strategy of the company, as a CEO is. So I think that's how the role is evolving. And the way I look at, if I look at my time today, I would say about 40% or 50% of my time goes into the first 2 quadrants, which is custodian and business enabler. And the balance 50% goes into financial prudence and strategist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you for setting that so clearly. And so, keeping in mind these 4 pillars really of your role and what it entails to be an effective CFO, surely there's a wide range of skill sets you require.
Yeah.
It's not only the financial, you need clearly good communication skills. Like you said, you are working hand in hand with the CEOs, with other C-suite executives. So what would you say you have observed in your experience as well as the evolving skill set that a CFO requires, and how are you keeping up and adapting to this?
See, one fundamental skill set which is required is logical thinking. Because for me, or let's say for any CFO, it's not just finance, right? I need to somewhere understand technology as well.
Yes.
Now, technology, I don't mean just the IT. I also need to understand some bit of engineering aspect, which fundamentally I don't understand, right? But probably I can have some logical thinking there, right? So in any aspect, the 4 pillars that I talked about, one important thing that a CFO needs to develop is the logical thinking. Leadership is extremely important. When I say leadership, what I mean is how do you really work with the entire team, not just cross-functional, cross-business. And let's say in our case, we have multiple businesses, which means you have to work at all levels, whether it is the MDs, your peers, your subordinates. Now, you should be able to lead the entire team and inspire the team, right? The other important aspect is excellent communication. And simply communication for me is right storytelling. And why? Because you should be able to, when I say influence, when I say inspire, it's all about how do you tell your part of the story that a person is able to buy in your story, right? So I think those are skill sets which are evolving, right? And I think it's taking good shape. So yeah, I think most CFOs are getting into that frame.
Yeah, fantastic. So, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges in that case? It could be amongst developing these various skills, or just anything that a CFO has to deal with today, perhaps that he didn't have to in previous years.
Another thing I would like to add, Devina, here is one is the compliance burden,
Yes.
right, which has gone up so much, right? Every day you have changes happening in the compliance, and it's just getting stricter, right? Some way it is good, right? I think we need stricter laws. But at the same time, you have to be abreast with, and probably at some times you're not used to it. Sometimes it becomes overbearing as well. So I think that's how do you do it is one, you have the right infrastructure within the organization. And by that, what I mean is having the right IT tools to enable you to, handle the compliance. Second is obviously the awareness. You have to set that tone in the organization, right, for all compliance officers, including the CFOs, to be updated on what is happening. So you have to have that mechanism in the organization. And the whole organization should know that compliance is the key, right? So I think that's how it works. So it's a culture you set in the organization. So that is on the compliance side. So I think the question was, how do you develop these skills, if I'm not wrong. Now, developing some of those skills, I would say, there are certain training programs which are made, tailor-made to help you developing those skill sets. Like, for example, our organization, sends very senior leaders to Wharton, to Harvard, right? Now, those are the programs which are done to upgrade our skill sets, right, in the areas which I talked about, right, whether it's storytelling, whether it's communication, whether it is logical thinking, right. Rest is all course, right? That's something which I have to do. If I say updating myself on my CA programs or my MBA programs or compliances, that is given. I think you have to go beyond that and develop. And these training programs and these things help.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what I did follow up to ask you then, keeping in mind all these skill sets, all the multiple hats really that a CFO has to don and has to really take ownership of, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges that you face? And again, are these challenges maybe that are new today that didn't exist before? Again, keeping in mind all the evolution in your role as a CFO, and maybe if you have any personal examples to share of crisis management that you have dealt with.
So I would say the biggest challenge today is the uncertainty, right? Post-COVID, I would say the impact of COVID is continuing. So the way I call it is legacy impact of COVID. Now it's been three and a half years. So there's a legacy impact of COVID which is continuing. There is impact of Russia-Ukraine war which is continuing, right? So they have what has resulted in is that the fundamentals of business have broken down. Right. So business today is not operating on fundamentals, it's operating on events, right? So I think this is the biggest uncertainty. Therefore, the biggest challenge for me is ensuring the cash flow of the organization, right? And ensuring growth along with that, right? So I think that's what my key role is, to make sure that we are on the growth path as an organization. There is enough liquidity in the system. So we're not, and therefore I'm taking all measures, right, to work as a custodian as well as to work as a strategist to ensure that we are growing. So I think that's I would say the biggest challenge today.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a handful of very serious business-wide commitments that you must keep in mind. And again, are there any specific examples that you can share where you were in a situation with which really required extreme crisis management that you came out of?
Yeah, I would say I would actually go back to the times when there was a financial crisis in 2008-9, right? And there was liquidity crisis everywhere, right? And I remember I was in Mumbai meeting some of the banks, and I got a call from a banker saying that they want their money back, right? So they had the liquidity crisis, they wanted the money back. Yeah. Being in Mumbai, handling, the banker was in Delhi. Now, I think what helped at that time was that our relationships with bankers has been very deep, right? We've always worked as partners, right? And all I had to do at that point of time, one was call up another banker, right? And very clearly say that there's a bank who's asking their money back. I said, fine, just, we'll give you 75 crores. So what really I feel proud of that event or that incident is that there was a trust that the banker had on the organization,
Yes.
right? Similarly, if I come back to the situation now, right, when there were those COVID times. Now, what I did during COVID times was that business was, growing at a slow pace, or actually it was decelerating for some time. What I ensured was that I tie up funds around that time, right, to ensure that there is enough liquidity, right. So I tied up few hundred crores, right, kept it in the bank, right. Now that ensured that the business at no point in time is feeling that there is any stress or there can be a stress. So it's about preparing the organization for the worst, but being optimistic about the future.
Yes.
Right. That's the point.
Yeah, thank you for that tip. I'm sure that's very helpful for our viewers. Moving on, where you yourself have brought up the role of technology, right, at a CFO level. With all the advents of, say, generative AI, of course, data, big data, even bigger data, where you have such vast volumes of data, not only collection but processing. How do you as a CFO really streamline, harness the tools that are now available to you to the maximum, and especially when it comes to data, streamline it so that it gives you the best information and the best results possible?
So as everyone says, data is king, right? And as the businesses are getting more complex, as the business environment is getting more complex, data is the key. And the other important point is that today you have to have a very quick decision making, right? Because the business environment doesn't stop, competition doesn't stop, right? And therefore you should have the right data. And data today is not just internal, it is external as well. I think the other thing important is we as an organization believe in paperless working, right? Constantly, I would say, every time we are working on simplification and automation, that's the funda we work on.
Yes, absolutely. And as a result of simplification, automation, and so on, surely there is then room for innovation as well.
Absolutely. So innovation, one is in the space of IT, right, which is centric to what internal customer or external customer needs. Another innovation that happens in our organization is about, which again is related to the future growth. So we're not just centric to what we do right now. We do think about, what new business we would want to get into in future. We would incubate businesses. So we've been incubating business for the last 20 years, and some of the businesses have done really well from that incubation.
So how do you as a CFO once again ensure that when it comes to any of your innovative new kind of offerings within the organization, how do you ensure their financial sustainability and also get a buy-in from all the stakeholders, right? As we're discussing constantly, your dialogue with the CEO and all the C-suite executives is a constant one. So how do you also get your buy-in?
So there are two parts to it. One is very financial, right? So what I have to do and ensure as a group we do is right capital allocation policy, right? So what I have to ensure is that there is X percentage of capital, right, which is defined that this is for startups. When I say startup, doesn't really mean startup in the strict sense of the term. It essentially means incubate businesses, right? So we do that. We say that, okay, X percentage we keep as the money which is there for startups over a period, right? So we know this is risk capital of the company.
Yes. Right.
So in all probability, you invest in maybe 4-5 new areas. Probably 1 or 2 will not do well, 1 or 2 will do well, right? So that's one. So as a finance enabler, my job is to ensure that there is some bit of risk capital available to invest in the innovation. That's how I enable innovation, right? Now, in terms of getting a buy-in, right? So any innovative idea also has to show that what is the light at the end of the day, right? So that's we do together along with the CEOs of the businesses, right? Whoever is coming up with an innovative idea, to understand together and work together to see that what is the light at the end of the day, when do I see profit, right? And then take it to the management that we should invest in this kind of a business.
Absolutely. So keeping all these very valuable tools and check boxes that you're mentioning, how can you summarize as a CFO how you ensure that you have a resilient financial infrastructure in place in your organization, again, especially in the face of upcoming crisis or any unforeseen circumstances? What does it really take to ensure that resiliency in the organization?
So that's where my third pillar comes into picture, is financial prudence.
Right.
right?
Right.
So which I mentioned that you set the financial boundaries or the principles within which the company has to operate. So without giving the exact numbers, right? But we do set principles on certain ratios, financial ratios, like net debt to EBITDA, return on capital employed, return on equity, right? So we say this is what, any new project that comes up, these are the hurdle rates. Or for the organization as a whole, these are the kind of principles that or the ratios we want to target on a sustainable basis, right? So that is one. Similarly, capital allocation policy, right? How much capital you allocate to which business, in what kind of business, right? So as long as you've set those financial boundaries, right, then you will be able to handle these uncertainties, and you are more resilient as an organization.
And well, slowly we come to a close of this conversation. We've touched on so many very important points. What I would love to know, just for you as an individual, not only in your role as a CFO, how do you stay abreast of trends that are going to impact your business at the end of the day? Are you an avid reader, for example, or is it through industry contacts? What does it mean to you to keeping up with the trends?
Couple of things. One, you rightly said, reading is extremely important. All kind of any book, right? But reading as a habit is extremely important, which keeps you updated. Newspapers, definitely at the start of the day. That's very important. The business papers. The other thing is, you interact with the business CEOs, and not just the business CEOs, the business functional heads. Like before coming here, right? I was talking to my the marketing head or sales head of my chemicals business, right, to understand certain aspects, right? Now, so that's how I keep abreast as to what's happening in the market, right? When I talk to my CEOs, I keep abreast of what's happening, in their business in terms of new ideas, new areas of growth. The third I use is, attending certain forums, networking. I think all those things are important to be abreast as to what is happening. But and that's extremely important as a CFO, or for that matter, any CXO. It is very important to be updated and well networked, in the environment. Yeah.
And then how does that transpire to your team? How do you ensure that your team also has that trickle-down effect of making sure that they are in the know as you do?
So one, I do have sessions with the team. So what I learn, I pass them on, and I ask them to pass on to me back. So that means they also have to be, updated in some fashion, and I would enable wherever I need to. But they know it's their job to be updated and also educate me at times, because they are the people on ground, right? So I think that's the kind of relationship we maintain with the team, so that we are all working together.
Yes,
and enlightening each other.
Yeah, fantastic. It is a team effort.
Yeah.
After all, that's great. And Amit, finally, with an organization such as yours and the scale on which you function, of course, ESG has become a crucial part of your business functioning. So I'm curious, again, as a CFO, how do you approach and factor in all the ESG requirements, and how do you ensure, once again, that there's a sound strategy in place when it comes to ESG?
See, ESG, Ravina, has become very integral. From finance perspective as well, right? Whether it is my shareholders or it is my lenders, right? Both of them, so essentially all financial stakeholders, want to understand that what are we doing on the ESG front, right? And therefore, I work very closely with our sustainability head, right, to see that what targets we are setting, where are we, how we've achieved them, what all I can contribute in terms of my knowledge when I hear from my peers as to what they are doing. So we work together, right? And we look at projects which are being where we are investing on on environment, social governance. So I think it's a big team effort that we have in our organization, and CFO is a critical part of that.
Absolutely. Are there any specific metrics that you look out for as a CFO, again, to ensure that your strategy is the right one?
Yeah, so I do look at how the carbon footprint is, how the water conservation is. At least these two I track very regularly. And also what we are doing on renewable energy, how much are we increasing, because we are an energy centric organization. Therefore, how every year we are improving on our carbon footprint and the green energy. I think we keep those targets and try and achieve those targets.
Fantastic. Amit, thank you so much for sharing so much insight and knowledge across the spectrum when it comes to really understanding the role of a CFO and the ever-evolving role that you face. On a closing note, if you could share maybe the top 3 tips that you would give to other people either entering the workforce or other C-suite when it comes to fulfilling your role effectively as a CFO and keeping up with the changing times?
So to entrants, yes. To existing CXOs, I think they are knowledgeable enough. So, so to entrants, I would say one, deep diving on a subject, right? So it's very important to be getting into details. And resultant of that is having an eye for the detail, right? Which means that you, without deep diving also, you should be able to understand things. Third and the fourth would be, again, very logical thinking and taking a holistic view of everything.
Yes. Fantastic. Amit, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been a pleasure and sharing all your insights with us.
Pleasure. Thank you so much, Devina.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, on that note, that's all we have for you on this insightful episode of ET Studios CFO Blueprint in association with ET CFO. Stay tuned for more such in-depth conversations where we chat with India's leading CFOs who inspire us with their success stories, leadership and insights. Until next time, many thanks for watching.